everyone. Today I am joined by two amazing women, Jade and Alcira, and today we are just having a little chat about what makes them powerful and badass women in St. Andrews. And I knew I had to ask you guys first because obviously, yeah, you're my bosses, but also just because I've read both of your work and I think you're cool. So that's why I asked you.
Come on.
Do you want to introduce yourselves?
Alcira?
Okay, I go first. My name is Alcira, and I'm from the south of Spain, and obviously, like both of you, studying St. Andrews. And I'm in my fourth year studying international relations and philosophy. So I'm currently working, not as much as I should, but working on my dissertation and just vibing in lockdown, to be honest.
I'm Jade. I am from the Netherlands and California. I'm studying international relations and social anthropology. I'm also in my fourth year, and I am currently also vibing in lockdown, and my dissertation is due this coming Monday. So it's been just a hectic few weeks of working on that.
I wanted to ask you guys how you came up with the idea to start Brizo.
Okay, so basically this all started when at the end of first year, Jade and I used to go to Pratt a lot just in the mornings. I think it was probably like revision week.
Yeah, it was.
And chat and work on like weekly goals. That was something we used to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, like sit in the sun and enjoy the good weather. And I don't know which one of us said this first, but we were basically having a conversation about the state of like current media and newspapers and publications and our slight disappointment towards them in terms of like how fast it all seems and how little reflection there is sometimes to the pieces that are published. And then one of us said, I've always wanted to start my own magazine/newspaper. And then the other one was like, oh my God, me too. So I think it was actually you, Jade, who went, well, we could just do it. Like we could just try and start it. So basically that entire summer, like summer for first year, which was 2018, we started planning it. And then October 2018, we released the first articles, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Did you guys have any challenges that you were facing?
Absolutely, I would say. I think in terms of coming up with it originally, it was, of course, we were really excited, and the first sort of day was mainly us just like buzzing about it the whole time. We were extremely, I don't know, ideas were pouring out from both of us, and we kept texting each other that whole week of, oh, I just had an idea, and coming up with names and stuff. But then when it actually came down to thinking on, okay, how do we structure this? How do we get people to write for us? How do we get artists? How do we have an online platform? How do you start a website? Those were all a lot of logistical challenges that we had to sort of sort through. And I think, honestly, I mean, obviously there's been challenges the whole way through. There's challenges today. But I think our first huge hurdle was finding a name.
Yeah.
That was supposed to, we had like this calendar of when certain things were supposed to be done by certain dates. Okay, we organized like a writing schedule by the 15th and this by the that. And I think we wanted a name by the end of the week that we first spoke about starting this. And that was in May. We did not have a name until I think end of July, maybe. Yeah, because every magazine name in the world already exists.
Taken.
How did you end up coming up with it?
I think we both created, like, we were working on a list on Google Drive, basically with just like names that we liked that weren't necessarily related to anything specific, but we liked the sound of and like the aesthetic look of it. And I was looking to Greek deities, and Brizo is actually like an ancient Greek deity. It's like she's supposed to be like not really a mermaid, but kind of like small goddess that whispered dreams to sailors or something like that.
Yeah, and prophecies.
So I found that one, and then because the original one, which was Bird, that was taken. Juno, which was also one of the ones we wanted to use, that was also taken, and that one wasn't taken. And we really liked how like different people would pronounce it differently, and how like no one would really know straight away, or like it's just this, and have like a very fixed idea in their brain. So we ended up keeping that one.
And did it always start off being about art and writing, or did that just come naturally through the process of trying to start your magazine?
I think the inclusion of art was integral from the beginning for us, because we both felt like there wasn't something out there, at least that we could engage with ourselves. Like there was magazines that did similar things that we could consume their media, but there was nothing that we could be writing for or producing work for that struck a balance between professionalism and artistry. So yeah, that was, I mean, I think that was one of the main flames in getting us to start it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think another part of it was as well, like, we're both very interested in the arts. And I think we both think of it, like, of ourselves and of each other as, like, creative people. And we did, like, talk about, like, how, especially in our first year, we didn't really have, like, anywhere to channel that wasn't just a private realm. It was, like, writing in our rooms and then maybe sending it to each other. So we did want to, like, be, like, allow the magazine to also include that and to not be as restricted and as formal as maybe as a newspaper would be.
I think for me, there's a reason why I never joined any other magazines or, you know, The Saint. But as a writer, I feel an extreme amount of freedom. And I'm so thankful for that as well, because you've managed to create something that people can truly express themselves in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the goal. So that's great. That's what we wanted.
That's like the best thing that we could ever hear, because that was something else. Like sometimes you want to be working, you want to be creating, you want to be writing, but you don't necessarily want to be doing it on everyone else's terms, because it is such a creative thing, and then innately that makes it a very personal thing. So yeah, I mean, I think that just makes Alcira and I so happy to hear. Like, honestly, that's just what we want.
Where do you think it's going to go from here? Because you're both in your last semester of uni, and we'll be heading on to other ventures.
I mean, we obviously have to, like, discuss it more, but I feel like especially right now, because we just got, like, a new social media team, because for a long time Jade and I were doing all of the social media, and we may be good writers, but social media is definitely not our expertise.
No.
So we did get for people to work on it, so hopefully that will allow us to grow more. And I don't think either of us just wants to drop it. Like, I'd be really sad if we were just like, yeah, let's get rid of it. So hopefully find a way to keep it going and keep, like, because we do have a lot of writers who are also going to graduate this year. So just to encourage people to keep it as something that they can still have on the side, to work on creative stuff while they go on to get jobs or do masters or whatever it is that's going to happen now. There's
a quote that Alcira sent me on Instagram the other day that I think is, like, kind of perfect for the way that I think we both feel about Brizo, and it was, I want to see what happens if I don't give up. And I think that's how we felt literally from the first day we decided to start it, which was, okay, let's just keep pushing it and see where it goes. And I don't necessarily think that we would have expected it to still be going fourth year and still be going well and to be growing. And so I think that sort of sentiment is what we hold on to in the idea of moving forward as well. Like, not only is it fun for us and exciting and a great creative outlet, but I kind of want to see what happens if we just don't give up, like if we just keep going.
Because it is like, we call it our baby because it is our baby at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually wild to think about how different it is now from what it was like at the beginning, and how many things we've improved and just changed and everything. So it'd just be cool to see where it can get to if we keep it going, and if we get more people on board and we, like, smooth out all the little details that we still have to work on and so on.
I wanted to ask you what your inspirations were, whether personal or, you know, an academic inspiration or whatever you want to talk about.
I don't know if this is necessarily a direct inspiration for the magazine, but you asking that made me think of the fact that we have a shared Pinterest board, the two of us, that's called Make Gloria Proud, as in Gloria Steinem, and feminist activist. And I think the idea of it in terms of the magazine, it's not necessarily just like Gloria Steinem per se, but this idea of, like, people who, like, taken on a project or taken on a dream or an objective or whatever, and they've pushed it through, even when at the beginning they weren't necessarily in the position to make it work as they did. And in terms of aesthetics, I do remember at the beginning we're really set on, like, making it very simplistic and, like, very minimalist, so it would be, like, have a wider appeal, and it wouldn't really impose so much of, like, a very strict aesthetic kind of, like, perspective on the readers or the audience. So I remember we looked at the New York Times and we looked at the New Yorker, and we liked how clean they both were. Like, both of those publications online looked very clean. So we tried to take some of that on board.
I actually had forgotten that we did that, but we did. We looked through different like newspapers and different websites, because we obviously had to format the site, and we're like, okay, do we want to do multiple columns? How do we want to make it look? I completely forgot about that, but that was an important time. I think We were probably inspired. I don't know, this is kind of strange to say, but academically speaking, since Althea and I both do international relations and then kind of the more stereotypically artsy social sciences of she does philosophy and I do social anthropology, I think that definitely inspired this idea of a collective space being professional and still kind of creative, because we were talking about how fun it could be to write pieces about, certain things I learned in social anthropology I would love to write pieces about because I think it's so interesting and kind of wacky. And then on the other side, we wanted to also focus on politics and internationalism and things going on in the world because we had that more sort of strict IR regimen in our heads. So strangely enough, I would say academia and what we study influence the content as well, or at least our vision for some of the content, I think.
And it definitely influences what we write, because you're talking about like you have included like brought in anthropology, not in like a very strict like anthropological sense of it, but like it's like included within your articles. And I have done that, or I do that consistently with philosophy when I'm writing mine. And it's not just like, oh, we want to make sure that our degrees are clear. It's more like, well, studying that like definitely influences the way in which we think. And as I said, like the combination between IR and a more like artsy humanities subjects, like I feel like has had a very important impact on how we want to like explain what we feel about the world, or what we think about what's going on, and how we want to share it with other people.
It's also a fun form to sort of strip away a sense of gatekeeping from subjects like that, to transform them into articles that are put online, can be accessed for free, and are, I mean, hopefully readable by most people. Like, I hope they're not that complex or poorly written, but it's fun in that way because it's colloquializing a lot of kind of crazy academic theories that have no real standing in the actual world, and sometimes it feels sort of useless because it's not tangible at all. And it's transforming all that knowledge into something productive, or at least what feels like is productive to us, in writing articles we like, or in fostering that sort of mentality in the whole team, or at least that's what we hope for,
Do you think it's made you grow as a person, both in your private life and also as a student who has to write essays?
I definitely think that like not only just like organizing Bristol, but especially the writing side of it, like having the opportunity and almost like opportunity / obligation to write for it, because at the end of the day we're the ones that like created it, so we really want to make sure that we're putting out pieces when everyone else is. I think that has definitely helped me grow, both on a personal level in terms of like being more confident with my work, and also intellectually in having like a separate venue in which I can actually explore themes and not be restricted by what I'm studying, but still feel like I'm gaining something from my degree, and it's not just going to be limited by the piece of paper that I'm gonna get when I graduate in June, and that's no one's really gonna care about that all that much.
I think I feel the same way. It's made me in a lot of ways also more comfortable, like you said. On the other side, in a more regimented sense, it's made me get more used to working towards a deadline. I think it's easy to say like, oh, well, if I have work I want to do, then I'll do it before the last minute. When you're writing like an essay for a course, you don't necessarily want to be writing that essay. And then sometimes, I have this great idea for an article. I really want to write it for the next issue. And time keeps coming closer and I have not written it at all. And I think that caring about something and having a deadline on it has made me really hone in on skills of time management and pushing myself to get something down on paper and to actually feel proud of it, because ultimately, we're going to promote it. It's going to get promoted and people are going to read it. And so I think it's made me bolder, more regimented, and I maybe care more about my work, or take more pride in it, or want to take more pride in it at least. So be a little more careful with the thought process.
I mean, I know as a creative, it's kind of difficult to feel validation in any type of way, because when you apply for things and you submit yourself to competitions or really anything, there is the chances of getting a successful thing published is very low. And personally, I felt so validated when you brought me on, and I felt very heard. And I think that it's a testament to the both of you that this is what Brizo is.
That's
Thank you so much. That's makes me, and I think it makes you so happy as well, because that's what we want it to be and what we want it to feel like for you guys when you're working with us.
Yeah, and ultimately we always feel like Alcira and I feel and know that we are the least interesting part about Brizo, and that it would not run like we could say, oh, we have an idea for something we want to make, and if no one wanted to participate in it, it would be pointless.
Yeah.
And so what makes Brizo great, like the onus of it is on the writers and the artists who decide to give their time and energy to working with us. So to hear that you feel validated and that you like to do it, I mean, it's our greatest dream realized, honestly.
Because like we've discussed this so many times, like the idea, like we thought all of the people who are working with us, be it like as writers or as artists, or like Kate and Nindy who are behind the scenes doing like editing and marketing stuff and all that kind of stuff on the social media team now, like we wouldn't be anywhere and it wouldn't have grown to be what it is right now. Because realistically, like if there's no people who are willing to like trust you and trust the project in itself and willing to share with other people, then it's just gonna die quite soon after it starts.
We want to harbor a nice environment because ultimately we want to harbor a nice environment. But it is also really, really beautiful to see what people will make when they don't feel as though their work will be barred from going up. Like, you can write a poem for us, or you can do a photography series, whether or not you're a fantastic photographer. Like, we don't necessarily care about the standards in that way. We care more about an artistic vision or an intellectual vision, and the communication of someone's voice and thought process through media in whatever form it might be. So I think that having an environment where we really hope we validate people is, I mean, honestly, I can't thank you enough for your words on it, because Alcira and I like really care about that. That's something that we desperately hope for in everything we do, and why we can feel uncomfortable sometimes enforcing anything of like this deadline or that, because it's just, we don't want to like harsh anyone's creative process or feeling of comfort,
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I find myself, whenever I have to finish something, if there's a time limit on it, I kind of am forced to then write about it. And somehow that makes me get the job done. As in, I think about it, and if I didn't have that deadline, I maybe wouldn't have written that piece.
I feel that with like the Brizo pieces, I don't think I would have written what I've written since we started had we not had deadlines and had we not been working towards like an issue release or a one-off piece or whatever. Because like it's so much easier when it's not going anywhere to be like, well, I could just write it whenever. I'm not no one really waiting to read it. There's no one really waiting for this piece to like be completely like like finished and uploaded anywhere. So I do definitely think that while I myself hate deadlines because I am a naturally stressy person, the idea of having them when it comes to creativity has actually helped me grow a lot as a writer. Not as much in terms of organization as Jade was saying, because I'm way more chaotic than you are when it comes to organizing myself. But it still has helped me like actually like, okay, I care about this. I want people to read it because I want to like see what other people think. So I'm gonna do it by this time and it's gonna be there and it's gonna go out.
Yeah, I feel the same as both of you, actually, because it's just the prospect of, well, I have my whole life to write that thing if I really want to write it. So yeah, structure, in many ways, structure does really nourish creativity. And I think that sort of speaks to, I don't know, if I want to get all artsy and hippy dippy, it does also speak to the slogan of the magazine and a big mission of the magazine of professional, artistic, working hand in hand, and one not demeaning the other, in that environment. And in that sense, I guess it makes sense that structure does help us all show people our creative work.
I wanted to ask if you had any experiences from the process of starting the magazine, like throughout, that's been either the best thing ever or maybe the worst thing ever, whatever you feel like you want to share, something funny or something frustrating.
I mean, there's been a lot of like good things and some like more frustrating things. I think one of the things I've enjoyed the most that has happened since we started was maybe when two things actually. The first one was when we gave the TEDx talk, when they did the launch for TEDx in St. Andrews. We were invited to speak, I think it was last year, right, Jade?
Yeah, it was
last year, which seems like ages ago now. And we prepared it all because we were going to talk. It was all about like, students who started their own projects or their own businesses. You came to my house first we discussed it. We had already been talking about like, okay, we're gonna say this, we're gonna say that, blah blah. We wrote it down in little note cards. I then proceeded to forget my little note card in my own flat because I'm an idiot. But then we got there and it went really well. And after it, like other guys were doing it as well. Like I remember Ellie and Ahmed from BPM, they talked as well. Ella Davis spoke as well. And talking to all of those other people afterwards and feeling like we actually did a good job and people were interested in what we were working with, and people who maybe had read it but they didn't know it was us who were behind it came up to us and were like, oh my god, I can't believe like you guys are organizing it, like I've been looking at the pieces, blah blah blah. So that was a really, really positive experience, like made me really happy, and I don't think we would have had we not started Briso, like definitely not.
I feel the exact same. That TEDx talk was really cool, and a result of the TEDx talk was our photo shoot with Sulk, which is Ella Davies's clothing brand. That was so much fun. I think it was fun because it was it was an interview with her because we saw her speak at the TEDx talk and thought, wow, what a really cool like woman. She finds leather jackets, and I think she's expanded now into some embroidery zones and making t-shirts and stuff, but she would go and thrift leather jackets and then paint original things on them, words, phrases, and they were just gorgeous. And she'd gotten quite a lot of success with it. So we ended up doing an interview with her, and we did a photo shoot to couple that interview where we got some people in St. Andrews to model her pieces, and it was just such a fun day. I think we felt really professional that day to, have a photographer, we had models, we had a setup, we had an interview, and we had a behind the scenes photographer. I think the serotonin boost I had because like from that lasted probably a week. I was just like, that was so professional.
And Ella was really sweet as well. Like the conversation I had with her was super interesting, and just like the overall experience, which is like I felt like I was dreaming the entire time. I was like, I cannot believe we are doing this when we've also seen each other in the behind the scenes of Breeze, when we were both like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know how we're gonna put this together. I don't know how we're gonna finish this, blah blah. So to feel so composed and to actually feel like we're carrying out a project that's going really well and it's working really easily and blah blah, it just felt surreal.
Yeah. I think another memory is just really quick. One of the coolest things, or I don't know, just an incredible opportunity was we got this email in, I think it must have been our second year in the springtime, which said, hi, there's this, we'd done a few interviews with, or in pieces on this one musician, her name's Georgia Meek. And we got this email that said, we'd like to invite you to be part of the member of press at her, like one of her tour venues in London. And I mean, we were screaming over the phone because we've been invited, like Brizo magazine has been invited to cover something as press. That's crazy. Like that's just because it felt like I'm realizing that people who don't know us, who are our immediate friends or like know of us in St. Andrews, they have no clue. It's just us behind the website, and like they might think it's an actual legitimate company. I mean, not to say that it isn't, but it doesn't feel like it because it's us.
So because we know what's going on all the time.
Yeah.
So people actually feel like, oh, there's like an internal structure to it, and they're super organized, and there's probably like a 30-year-old woman and a 30-year-old man or whatever. Like it's us in the, like, used to be us in the library half of the time, or us in press discussing it.
And I think it was exciting because on one hand it showed, okay, this is something that's being received, and our imposter syndrome that we have is not picked up upon by everyone else, and it's being received well enough that we're being invited to like fly out places. And we ended up actually going to that concert in London, and it was just so cool. Like not much happened, but it was just really cool to show up and be a member of press.
Oh my god, that was a chaotic weekend as well.
Yep, it was chaotic, yeah.
I think sometimes as we grow older, it kind of dawns on us that we're inspired by other people, but people are inspired by us. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to know, what do you feel when I tell you that people are inspired by you?
Confusion.
Denial. And also like they surely like blast them because they don't know what I'm really like, that there's no way they could be inspired by us. it's also really strange because like we do work with people either our age or slightly younger, or at this point with the social media team older than us.
Yeah.
Which I think like we never like really envisioned at the beginning because we were just first years. So most of the people we emailed were like our friends or people we knew from class. So it was like, yeah, it's just gonna be like students in St. Andrews or like who's like installed in America or whatever. Like all of us are kind of like on the same level in terms of like what we're doing and what we like and blah blah blah. So I don't know. I think it's a very weird concept to think that anyone. I mean, Jade inspires me, but like it's also like it's a very weird concept in that like people don't actually like know us properly. Be like, yeah, like you're an inspiration. Like, nah, sis, I don't have my shit together to that extent.
I like block it out, so I don't think that anyone has ever been inspired by us, nor have they ever said they have been. I don't care if you say it in like 1 second, my brain will not accept it and push it away because like I'm just like they're missing the point here because there's nothing to be inspired by. But on a grander note, when it comes to inspiration with Brizo, I always feel like Alcira and I are the ones that inspire you. I mean, you gotta scroll through the site and like look at all the artists and the writers and the people putting in their work. Like Caitlin Whiteley, she's our editor-in-chief. She did social media with us for a while. She is just an incredible human friend, and as a writer, her writing inspires me to no end. But then again, so does every single member of the Brizo team is very inspirational to me. Like that, I think part of what motivates me, going back to what we were talking about earlier, part of what motivates me to write pieces on time and get them up in the issue is I'm just excited to have anything I've written be next to, other people's writings. I mean, like you, having you asked to do this interview was more inspirational for me at the idea of like, oh my gosh, she wants to interview us.
Yeah,
So
truly.
cool. Like,
Truly.
yeah, it's like, why would you be no one should be inspired.
Meanwhile, me having this idea to do this and thinking, I have to do them first.
So much. I think with Brizo as well, and this is something we've discussed a lot in terms of some of the writers especially, like it's inspiring to see how some people who've been writing like for the Brizo, like creating art pieces for Brizo since like day one, because there's a couple of them who've been there from like day one, seeing the actual like evolution of their work and seeing just like get better and more beautiful and more like reflective and this and that, like that's very inspiring to me, like to see the potential in someone who like it's just our age and they were willing to like get on board with us when it was just the two of us sending emails in like August 2018. That's something that I love and that I find inspiring about the magazine as a whole and about those people specifically.
I think it's so cool how much you've managed to grow though since when you started it, because I think the first time I heard of Brizo was in the middle of lockdown. That was the first time I opened up the website and read articles and was like, wow, this is so cool. But I never really thought at the moment that I was like, oh, I should join. I was like, oh, I'm a bit hesitant because I don't know if I'm good enough, but I feel so supported and I love it. And I'm so glad to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. Have no illusions here. You are 100% good enough. Like 1,000%. It's so funny because it's funny to hear that side of the thought process, because when Alcira and I get emails of people asking to be part of it and they send us a sample, we're mainly just overjoyed. We're like, oh my gosh, so nice to join. And when their work is good, as yours was and is, it's I mean, triple-fold. We feel like we have to, like get that person to join. It doesn't feel as like, like, are they good enough? Like, we're just like so excited to bring people in, especially people who are extremely talented like yourself. So, I mean, thank you for your work. Like, yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, in terms of the growth, the first week we started, I was like, we're going to go off. We're gonna in a year we'll be the most talked about magazine on the planet. Like, I just like can't control my thoughts from spiraling like that. It's a naive and insane optimism, but I can't help it. But like when you strip it down to the sort of real side, and when things take longer than the idealized version would have taken, there's a lot of things to sort out, and growth happens incrementally. It's not just like a huge soaring one big break and that's it. So when all that's stripped away, I think a piece underneath me thought, got to make the most of what we have now, because who knows when this is going to end. And the fact that every new issue, I think we see growth in the magazine, in the way the aesthetic is, like the cohesion of the entire magazine, in the pieces that are getting put out, in the size of the team. I think what's fun about Brizo is it is such a learning experience, and it's noticeable. If you looked at our first issue, Epoch, from 2019, to,
boy.
Our most recent issue, Hirath, like that is just, it's incomparable. They're on completely different levels, and that's really exciting.
And it's also in terms of growth, like getting feedback from people that we don't necessarily know that well, like people either who go to St. Andrews, or even with, like, for example, like Snippet Sounds, which is our poetry series, like having people who don't know us and don't know how, like, all the behind the scenes that's going on, and just follow us on Instagram, send us their poems because they want to share them with us, and they feel comfortable, like they feel like our platform is a good place for them to, like, publish their work, share with other people. That's not something we had at the beginning, and that's something I'm really grateful for. And it was also something we saw when we did the Prime Month series. We published a couple of pieces, and I remember there was a person who shared a couple of photographs about their transition, and that got me really emotional, because I was like, the fact that you don't know us at all, and like personally, but you feel safe in this space and you want it to be here, and you're happy about the fact that, like, we wanted to include it within our website. It's wild to me.
That's definitely a big marker of our growth too, is the fact that we are honored not just by people that we know or at least have ties to through other people, but sometimes complete strangers who heard about us from one thing or the next, or got one of the advertisements when we've promoted things, just thought that they wanted to join or submit something. I think that is an honor like no other, and it's also such a sign that clearly not only are we expanding in the sense that more people are seeing things, but expanding in the sense that the space, as Alcira said, feels safe and good for people to contribute to, even if they don't know us personally. It's just, yeah, it's remarkable. It feels strange, but really good.
I think it seems to come very naturally, the inclusivity, the intersectionality. It feels so natural. Whoever's article you're reading, you feel a sense of acceptance and also an understanding about them as a person and their identity when you read their work. And it's so refreshing and amazing to see online.
I feel like that is also something that we've been very aware of, in terms of, like, because St. Andrews is quite international, and quite a lot of, like, the people who work with us do come from St. Andrews, even though we have people who go to other units or are not based in the UK or whatever. So I do think that we did want to, like, make sure that, like, the idea of positionality and, like, the author's, like, own personal voice, like, shines through when they're writing or even when they're creating art. And that's definitely something that, even if we don't maybe actively discuss it when we get submissions or when we get people, like, contacting us to work with us, something that we pay attention to when we're reading the pieces and when we're looking at the art. So I'm very happy that that's, like, you see that and that's how you feel about it, because it is definitely, like, key for us in the process.
And I think that is what pushed us, because in the beginning we were sort of torn. Are we a newspaper or are we a magazine? And I think the idea of articles being really individualized and very personal to whoever wrote them kind of pushed us more into the magazine zone, because it's not just news or politics where the voice is supposed to be quite stripped back and objective. Not that we're opposed to those pieces, we'll take them, but we get more articles that are very intimate, and I really like that. And exactly, I think it's an honor to hear that it comes through, because it's definitely important. And in terms of intersectionality and positionality, I think for both Alcira and I, it was one of the things we talked about when we first started Brizo, or came up with the idea. We were kind of discussing, like, what are the tenets of what we want to create, and it was like artistic, professional, and one of them was it needs to be international. It can't just be centered on one spot of the world. And while we can still do more, we still have so much more room to grow, and including more people and getting more people on the team. I'm really pleased to hear you say that you can feel the intersectionality, because it was important to us from the very conception of the magazine, especially as for both of us being people who have grown up in a lot of different places and speak multiple languages. It was just something like the fluidity needed to be part of the magazine, sort of.
The idea makes sense for it to be restricted by, like, oh, it's going to be a UK magazine and it's going to only like appeal to the UK audience or like an American audience, because that's not who we are, and that's not what our ideals align with. I feel like we both know a lot of people who come from very different places and who are doing very different things. So it just wouldn't have been natural for us to like limit ourselves according to that. We wanted to be as open, as inclusive, like almost as a meeting place between like where different identities interact, and like how like the person's own personal voice and our personal experience may still be relatable to someone's completely different, and allowing that to happen and allowing like dialogue to take place via the articles and via the pieces that we publish.
Yeah, it's an excitement of having similarity and having difference, and having that both sides of things being really fun. Like I think it's fun to read an article and relate to 50% of it and have the other 50% feel completely different from what your perspective is or what your upbringing is. Not only does it make it good content, like it's actually fun to read, it's engaging because you're connected and it's something that can teach you, but it's also just important, I think, in general for people in the world to listen to other people in the world and to relate to them on some level, but relish in the fact that not everything's the same.
That's all of my questions for today, but do you have anything you want to say to anyone who's watching? Any advice for people who want to be powerful, badass women?
I mean, I don't know if this is really advice, but one of my favorite, and it doesn't necessarily apply to us, okay? Because like I am very aware that we have so much space to grow, and I think we both have such a big imposter syndrome. It's actually ridiculous. One of my favorite quotes, and I can't show it on camera, but I have a tattoo that like references it. It's a quote that's supposedly by Van Gogh, and I'm not sure if like it's attributed to him. They're not entirely sure if like the quote itself that's attributed to him is the exact one, because it was part of one of the letters that he sent to his brother. But the quote goes something along the lines of like, if I'm someone tomorrow, like in the future, it's because I'm someone today. For wit is wit, even when people think it's only a grass. So that whole idea that like the internal value that you have, like the potential, the raw potential that you have, that's still there even when like others can see it, and you just have to trust yourself and trust the process. I think that's very important, because realistically, like it can take you a year, but it can also take you 20 years, and that shouldn't necessarily matter. Like as long as you love what you're doing and you have confidence in the fact that like you're doing it in the way that you want to do it and you're not harming anyone in the process, then just go ahead.
Alcira and I often say that we are half of one brain, because half the time she says something and I'm like, that's exactly what I was going to say. And I say something and she's like, that's exactly what I was going to say. One kind of piece of advice, which is for everyone as much as it is for myself, is what I've felt recently is that the way to grow is to accept yourself at the stage you are at currently. Berating yourself, policing yourself, pushing yourself around in a harmful manner will never ever make you actually become the person you think you're forcing yourself to become. It only makes you scared to take the opportunities and the chances and to push yourself in the productive ways that you would need to accomplish personal, professional, emotional goals or wants. So I think I've really learned recently that you can nourish the person you are right now and validate the person you are right now and be hopeful that that person is someone who has the potential to become the things you value and you like and you want. I think you just have to start seeing the things in you that you really like and bringing them out by giving them attention and love. And in that second piece this is related to Brizo. If you have an idea or something and you really like it and you think it's going to be fun, just do it. I think that has been a big lesson for us, because Brizo could have easily, it's been life-changing, and it's a part of my life that I'll hold with me, I think, even when I'm old and gray. And I think that as easily as it happened, it could have not happened. It was literally a matter of us just being like, we're just going to put in that little bit of legwork to get it off the ground. So I think that's something. Just if you want to do something, do it. Don't worry, just go for it.
I feel like a lot of the time it's always helpful to have someone who you know is like on the same page as you are, because I feel like, and we've definitely talked about this, like I know that like I wouldn't have done this by myself. Like I would have never started and like pushed it through to get it like rolling if Jade hadn't been there. And you have said that to me before, and it's this idea like sometimes like having someone who like you share ideals with and you share objectives with and you trust to such a degree can be very helpful to get you through like the little rough patches, because there will be times when I'm like, oh my god, it's not gonna work, blah blah, and you say like, yeah, no, it's gonna be fine, like you need to calm down, and vice versa. So from our experience, at least, like that's something that like I cherish so much. I think that like it would be great for everyone to have that when they're trying to start something.
Teamwork makes the dream work. It really does.
Absolutely.
Like I think there's such a focus on being a lone wolf, and that's kind of commemorated in the media we consume. But I would say that Brizo especially has taught me that there's nothing like community. Like we were saying earlier, having all the writers and the artists, like, and the behind the scenes team, you know, there's nothing like it, because we would literally have no project without everyone.
Well, thank you both so much for joining me today. This was an absolute pleasure to speak to both of you and meet you, even though it's via Teams. Hopefully, you know, this semester provides some actual opportunity to see you outside of a computer screen.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
But
yeah, thank you so much. What a fun opportunity. Like, and also insane that you think we're worthy of your time and energy. It's very
absolutely. I think toss the imposter syndrome. It doesn't deserve to be in your life.